April 26th, 1865. The capture of John Wilkes Booth. You are there.
Order Cronkite reporting, April 25th, 1865. A great tragedy has befallen the American people. Abraham Lincoln is dead. 12 days ago, on Good Friday, an assassin's bullet ended the life of the 16th president of these United States. The whole nation is stricken like a family suddenly and terribly bereaved of a beloved parent. Homes and public buildings are draped in black. Men and women weep openly in the streets. Soldiers move aimlessly, lost without the hand that led them unfalteringly through 4 years of war. 12 days have passed, and the assassin is still at large. This is a sad springtime for America, indeed for the whole world. In harbors and cities everywhere, flags are at half-mast. A world that revered Abraham Lincoln continues to pour its condolences into the hearts of his bereaved people. From the White House, the funeral cortege wound 1,700 miles so that men could look once again on the quiet face that has been granted lasting peace. Children were lifted to see the man they would come to remember only as a splendid legend. Throughout the North and South, united now in grief, men cry out that the assassin, John Wilkes Booth, be brought to justice. This giant task rests on the shoulders of Mr. Edwin Stanton, Secretary of War and Mr. Lincoln's close friend. We take you now to Mr. Stanton's office in the War Department. All things are as they were then, except you are there.
This is Harlow Wilcox. We are in the office of Secretary of War. Present are Mr. Edwin Stanton, Major Eckert, his chief aide, and Judge Advocate Henry Burnett. Since the moment of President Lincoln's death, Mr. Stanton has scarcely left his desk. Within a few days of the tragic happening at Ford's Theater, anyone even remotely suspect in the conspiracy has been taken into custody. But John Wilkes Booth and David Harold are still at large. A bitter defeat for this worn man with but one driving thought, to bring Mr. Lincoln's murderer to justice.
Attacks. Accusations from all sides. This inspired satirist has Booth hiding under my desk. The caption, "Where is John Wilkes Booth?" Can't make out if I'm accused of harboring the assassin or merely being a bungling idiot who can't find a man who's right under his very feet.
You were criticized during the war, sir. You seldom permitted opinion of the armchair strategist to trouble you.
Perhaps it disturbs me now because I find myself asking the same questions. Where have we bungled? Huh? Have we indeed mistaken shadow for substance? Where in this dark picture has he found refuge? Who is shielding him? Why, despite the huge reward on his head, will no one betray him to us?
Your discouragement is understandable, sir, in view of the last 12 days. But yesterday's developments should be heartening.
Heartening? How many such leads have we already run down, Major Eckert?
More than I'd care to say, sir.
Then shall we hold our optimism until one of them gives us some tangible result?
We must interrupt at this point as Ned Calmer in Bowling Green, Virginia, has an important development. Come in, Ned Calmer.
This is Ned Calmer. We're at Bowling Green in Caroline County, Virginia. This is the hotel room of William Jett, a captain with Mosby's guerrilla forces. The others here are Colonel Conger, Lieutenant Baker, both of the Secret Service, and Lieutenant Doherty, in command of the 16th New York Cavalry. The young Confederate officer has just been routed out of bed for questioning.
When did you say you left Fort Conway?
Yesterday, about midday.
Is it true with other officers of Mosby's command you crossed the Rappahannock in a ferry and went over to Port Royal?
Yeah. With Lieutenant Ruggles and Bainbridge.
There were two other men. Were they friends of yours, too?
I never saw them before.
Well, you had conversation with them.
One of them came over and talked to us. Said his name was Boyd. The man in the wagon was his brother, James Boyd. He asked if we could help him onto the ferry.
Oh. Did he have a leg injury, or was he on crutches?
He was in a pretty bad way. Said he was wounded at Petersburg. We helped him off the wagon and onto the ferry.
Lieutenant, bring those posters over. Maybe we can refresh the captain's memory a little bit.
Is this a likeness of the injured man?
Easy to say.
Maybe You better take a better look, Captain.
Could we see one of those placards, Lieutenant Baker?
Well, is that the man or isn't it?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. It's hard to say.
You're lying, Captain. You know the penalty for withholding vital information. Now, come on, tell us what this is all about. Tell us what we want to know.
Can I talk to you private a minute?
No, you can say anything you've got to say in presence of these men.
I know who you want. I think I can tell you where they can be found.
Well, you sure took your time getting around to it. Come on, speak up.
On the road to Port Royal, about 3 miles this side of it.
The road to Port Royal, we just came from there.
Right.
I thought you came from Richmond. If you came that way, you came past me.
Well, the men prepare to leave in 5 minutes. I want to tell you something, Captain. This is some sort of a trick. To waste our time is going to go sorely with you. You are aware of that, aren't you?
Yeah, it is where I left them. I can't know for sure if they're
Do
still
you
there.
know the exact place?
I know the county well. I can take you there.
Get dressed and hurry up about it.
Lieutenant Baker, how far is it back to Port Royal?
Oh, better than an hour's ride, I'd say.
But with the men so exhausted from days and nights in the saddle, do you still consider the distance can be covered in that length of time?
This is the surest lead we've had in 10 days, sir. I think we can depend on Dory and his men to make good time.
It could prove another false lead.
Fervently hope it won't.
That's the hope of us all, Lieutenant.
Ready, Baker.
Right, sir.
During the time it'll take us to reach Port Royal, we switch you now to Todd Hunter. Come in, Todd Hunter.
This is Todd Hunter. We're aboard the Monitor Saugus, a gunboat anchored in the Navy Yard. In the dark hold of the cells were suspected conspirators already in custody or imprisoned. This is the cell of Dr. Samuel Mudd, accused of aiding Booth in his escape. The prisoners have been allowed no contact with the outside. This unprecedented procedure has brought ugly rumors of execution without benefit of trial for the conspirators. Due to the public pressure, the War Department has seen the wisdom of quieting these groundless reports by allowing us a few moments in the cells with Colonel Lafayette Baker, Chief of the United States Secret Service, who is now interrogating Dr. Mudd.
How many times must I say it? I committed no crime. As a physician, I rendered medical aid to an injured man. Should I have turned him away from my door? He was in great agony.
At that very moment, our president was in greater agony. He lay dying in a boarding house across from the Ford Theater, where the man you helped escape had put a bullet through his brain.
I did not know it at the time.
You expect me to believe that?
I expect you to believe nothing.
You expect us to believe that you had no part in this vile murder?
I tell you, I had no part in it. I denied knowing Booth because I was afraid.
You had good cause for fear, knowing that the penalty for complicity is death. Are you ready now to yield us some information that may hasten the capture of John Wilkes Booth?
I can tell you nothing. I knew nothing then. I know nothing now about Booth's plans for escape.
I want an answer, Dr. Mudd.
Sir, the ship's doctor has been unable to convince Mr. Stanton. Perhaps you can convince him that he'll have only dead men or imbeciles to put on trial, unless these startling hoods are removed.
These precautions may seem to you severe, but in these days of not knowing who is enemy and who friend, stringent measures are necessary. John Surratt escaped arrest through some warning we have been unable to track down. I think you will agree with me that this seeming punishment is in no way commensurate with the punishment inflicted upon Mr. Lincoln and our nation.
Colonel Baker has just left. Will you please take over Bill Stout?
This is Bill Stout in the cell where Mrs. Mary Surratt is confined. If past testimony is to be credited, it was at the Surratt boarding house that the plot against Mr. Lincoln and important members of his cabinet was conceived. A plot that first came to light in the decoding of Booth's personal papers.
Where is my son?
Why this constant dread of some harm befalling your son, Mrs. Surratt? If he is innocent.
He is innocent. Why will you not be convinced?
Your son is a known enemy spy. A loudly professed hater of Mr. Lincoln and Booth's closest companion. I find it no stretch of the imagination to believe him guilty. Now tell me, Mrs. Surratt, where has Booth taken refuge?
I was on my way to Surrattville to collect rent from a tenant, John Lloyd. Mr. Booth asked me to deliver a package. I had no notion what it contained.
But you knew the hiding place of the carbines and ammunition that Booth and Harold called for at the inn, less than an hour after they escaped across the Navy Bridge.
John Lloyd told you that. He lied.
In this wretched maze, who will separate the lies from the truth? Bring Mrs. Surratt some water. This next one will reveal even less information, I fear. Lewis Payne is neither repentant nor human enough to shed tears for his sins. You coming with me?
I believe Grant Holcomb is already on hand, sir. We take you now to Grant Holcomb, who will be present for the questioning of Lewis Payne. Come in, please, Grant Holcomb.
This is Grant Holcomb. The prisoner here is Lewis Thornton Powell, known to his friend Booth as Lewis Payne. To these brutal hands, Booth entrusted the murder of William Seward. In his blind devotion to the man Booth, Lewis Payne carried out his orders, assaulting a helpless man in his sick bed. Only the steel neckpiece bracing an injury saved Mr. Seward's life. It was 3 days before Payne was taken into custody, and then, only because hunger drove him, to the Surratt house, which was already under heavy guard.
I ain't answering any questions, Mr. Colonel.
Even if it meant you'd go free?
You're a good soldier, Colonel. Tell me honest. You think I'll go free?
I want John Wilkes Booth.
Already told you. I don't know where he is.
He must have told you where to meet him afterwards. Some nice plantation where you'd both be safe.
I only know I was to do my job right and meet him at Anacostia. I don't know where after that.
Did he ever take you to any of his friends in Caroline County?
No use, Colonel. I don't know any of his fine friends. If I did, I wouldn't tell you. Killed the president, he deserves to die just like I do. But I'm not putting my friend's head in a noose.
Now look, Payne. We know the general area where your friend is. All we need is the house. The name of the people. Maybe if you gave us this information now, it would go easier on you later.
You mean you'll see the rope a little loose around my neck? Maybe my feet touch the ground? Any way you do it, Colonel, I'll hang till I'm dead.
You're a fool, Payne. Seward is still alive. Legally, you're not a murderer. If you
It wasn't my fault I didn't kill him. Steel thing on his neck.
Colonel Baker, is there some vital news?
I'd consider it that, sir. It was telegraphed in only 5 minutes ago. Fort Royal, Virginia, 1:50 a.m., April 26th. Have located hiding place. Farmhouse 3 miles east Fort Royal. Entire detachment set for capture. This time, no mistake, E.J. Conger.
Say, that is news. We'll attempt to contact Ned Calmer, who's been with the searching party at Port Royal. Can you come in, Ned Calmer?
This is Ned Calmer. We're at the Garrett farm, 3 miles outside Port Royal. From the Garrett boys' description of the men sleeping in this barn, identity is now fairly certain. A minute ago, Colonel Conger ordered the men inside the barn to surrender their firearms and show themselves, but there's been no sound from them. Can you make out anything, Lieutenant Baker?
Can't see a blasted thing. It's dark as pitch in the barn.
You hear me in there? Surrender your weapons and come out! Sergeant, have the men get some dry brush and kindling. Stack it against the barn.
I have the owner's permission to rest here tonight. Who are you? What do you want?
Doesn't make any difference who we are. We know who you are, so surrender your weapons and come out of there.
I have no firearms.
We know you've got carbines and ammunition in there. You've also got just 5 minutes before I set fire to this barn.
I will surrender my arms to John Garrett, if you will send him in.
You don't send me in there. He must have heard me. He knows it was me who gave him away. He'll kill me.
We're not sending anyone in, Booth. We're ordering you out.
Curse you, John Garrett. You have betrayed me.
Better take Garrett back to the house.
It was young John Garrett who locked Booth and Harold in the barn after they went to bed, thinking they were thieves out to steal the Garrett horses. And it was young Garrett who told the Union soldiers about their hiding place.
Let me go in, sir. I'll herd him out fast enough.
I was so eager to get your head blown off, Sergeant. Get back to your post.
What's he trying to do, be a hero or something?
I'll tell you what. I'll give you one last chance, Booth. Now surrender your weapons and come out.
All ready, sir. Enough dry brush stacked against that barn to burn down the whole of Caroline County.
Touch it off.
Now hear me, Booth. We got 50 men posted outside. Once we light up that barn, you'll be the best target this side of the Potomac.
Sir, I am a cripple. If you are men of honor, you will give a lame man a chance for his life.
I'll tell you what I'll give you. One last chance. Come out. Now throw your weapons out and get out of there.
You go, sir. We're going quicker than you can spit. We'll burn. If you want to go, go. Get out. They will never take me alive. We're going to get out of here. Come bring out. Very well. Hand out your carbine and other weapons. The carbine belongs to me. If you want him to come out, let him out.
Never mind the weapons. We can get one of them out. Let's get him out. All right, Harold. Put out your hand. Get him! Get him! Get him more! Hey, let me get him! All right, watch your position! Hold that door! Who else is in there? Who else? What was that? I think he's been shot, sir. Well, keep the men outside. All right. All right, let us second. Take him, Purple. Take him. All right, let's get the man in. Put him on.
What is it, Corporal? Did he shoot himself?
I can't be sure, sir. I thought I heard a shot. He keeled over, tried to get up, but couldn't. I think he's hurt bad, sir. I can't say I'm sorry.
But couldn't you tell where the shot came from?
What do you bet you got? Try to put out that fire, too.
Can you identify this man? Maybe stringing you to one of them locusts to loosen your tongue, huh?
Take him over by the horses. Come.
Never figured he'd shoot himself. He didn't shoot himself. That shot came from outside the building.
What do you mean outside?
Outside.
These men wouldn't go against orders. Any of you men fire this shot?
I did, sir.
You had strict orders to fire only on sure provocation. You consider you had such provocation?
Providence directed me, sir. This man killed Mr. Lincoln.
Well, we'll just have to let Providence and the War Department decide what punishment should be meted out to insurgents. You're under arrest. Find that doctor!
He not that there,
Booth is trying to say something. Can you say how badly he injured he is, Lieutenant?
The bullet seems to have penetrated his
neck just above the ear and come out a fraction higher on the other side.
There's another handkerchief.
Oh, thanks. He's bleeding.
I think this is a man.
Apparently death is near. Evidence that this dying man is indeed John Wilkes Booth must be taken back without delay to Washington.
See what's on.
Distasteful as this duty may be, Colonel Conger is now emptying Booth's pockets of their contents. He's found a little nail file. That's
Find a doctor!
Compass.
On his way around.
A pocket knife. And he's unclasping a diamond pin which was inside Mr. Booth's shirt. Pipe. And some kind of a notebook.
No, that's a diary. One that might help us know a lot of stuff we want to know, too.
Quiet. He's trying to say something. I have no remorse for my crime. I may, before God, but not to man.
So ended the search for Lincoln's murderer. By 7 in the morning, John Wilkes Booth was dead. Sometime in those last days before capture, he wrote in his diary, "I have too great a soul to die like a criminal." Yet he did die like a criminal, fulfilling a gypsy's prophecy that he would come to a bad end. That in his palms he saw a thundering crowd of enemies and not one true friend. Booth's last request was to look once more on the hands which indeed had wrought their prophesied destruction. Lieutenant Baker lifted the paralyzed arms so the hands that shot Lincoln were visible to the dying man. His last words were, "Useless, useless." What the words meant to him will never be known. But to a bereft world, they carried one meaning. These were the hands that had needlessly taken the life of a great and beloved president. Of John Wilkes Booth, much has been recorded. And out of this warp and woof of truth and legend, one fact rises indisputably. With this one mad act, Booth carved for himself the most unenviable memory in the whole of our country's history.
Within 2 weeks after Booth's death, the conspirators were brought to trial. Lewis Payne, David Harrow, George Surratt, and Mary Surratt were found guilty as charged. This first woman in America's history to face the death sentence aroused no pity, no cry for mercy from a sorrowing, unrelenting people. On July 7th, the four were hanged. Only the son for whom Mary Surratt had wept escaped just punishment. Her trial, even her execution, failed to bring John Surratt from his safe hiding place in Canada. Dr. Samuel Mudd and 3 others were sentenced to life imprisonment. The controversy over whether Dr. Mudd was a partner to the crime has continued through the years. 3 years after his imprisonment in Fort Jefferson, there was a serious outbreak of yellow fever, one of the victims being Michael O'Loughlin. Though a prisoner, Dr. Mudd devoted his doctor's skills to guards and prisoners alike. As a result of his outstanding work in helping to stem the epidemic, he was eventually granted a full pardon by President Andrew Johnson. Pardons for Edward Spangler and Samuel Arnold soon followed. But these had built their own prison walls from which there was no escape. In seclusion, they lived out their shattered lives, to be remembered only for their part in the most infamous conspiracy of our times. For the assassin, John Wilkes Booth, Julia Ward Howe wrote a fitting epitaph. Harshly the red dawn arose on a deed of his doing, never to mend. But harsher days he wore out in the bitter pursuing and the wild end. April 26th, 1865. What sort of day was it? A day like all days, filled with those events that alter and illuminate our time. And you were there.
This has been a film presentation.